all of my thoughts on either of these movies aside, I don't think anyone should be making 2 hours and 45-minute long movies anymore. The attention span of me, but probably also the rest of my generation, is way too short for that. Holy shit. Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott, starring Harrison Ford and Rutger Hauer. Also, Blade Runner 2049, directed by Denis Villeneuve, starring Ryan Gosling and Jared Leto. So about 4 years ago, I watched Blade Runner, but since I'm a petty dick, I just talked through the whole thing so that the guy who was showing to me couldn't say that I liked the movie. So I watched it again this morning, and I did like it. I did like it. I didn't really like the immediate beginning of Blade Runner because it was like 3 solid minutes of black screen with white text telling me who's in the movie and then reading. So that it was a bad start to a movie, but it was 1982. Yeah, what can you say? At least Blade Runner 49 replaced the opening credits with long stylized logos and still gave me reading, which at first I thought it was identical, but then I actually read it and I realized that it was saying something completely different. Both of these films take place in the future of Southern California, which is a future I don't see how they ever thought was plausible. They think that the Japanese basically invaded and took over. Like, I can understand having a Japanese section or a Chinese section, but not like massive street signs in Japanese, people just walking around speaking Japanese, like without having any expectation of being required to speak English or Spanish, which is a lot more likely to be the dominant language in the area at the time. So I think they were getting confused with San Francisco, because San Francisco is like famous for having a Chinatown. I mean, Big Trouble in Little China, whereas I'm sure Los Angeles has a Chinatown. I know they got that Chinese theater, but it's not what they're known for. They're known for Hispanics, not Asians. And that said, I actually kind of like the way they had the future, though. Like, everything's crowded and dirty, and like that's a utopia for me. I mean, Atari was still around. They still had the Soviet Union, apparently. It was a very interesting universe that they wasted time just focusing on one tiny little aspect of it. I would like to see more in this universe or in a similar science fiction universe that isn't so focused on people that people made to look like people, and then they got mad that they looked too much like people and had to invent an entire way of getting rid of them. You guys see how that's stupid, right? Like, am I missing something? If you're making a slave labor force, don't make them look indistinguishable from yourself. But Blade Runner is a very good movie. Like, I'm sure it has quite a bit of flaws that I couldn't really tell because I was too focused on other bullshit that doesn't matter to anyone else but me. But, like, I mean, for example, I really could not understand their hairstyles and clothing styles. Like, it was almost cartoonish. I don't know how they did that to Daryl Hannah's hair. Like, is she wearing a wig and then another wig on top of it? I don't know. Those parts are the parts that bug me. I wasn't paying too much attention to whether or not there were story flaws because I'm not good at that. You know that. No, you don't. You never see my videos. Although I do not understand why Deckard actually fell in love with Rachel. Like, he seemed pretty prejudiced against robots, and there wasn't anything special about her that caused her to change his mind. I mean, he referred to her as an it in the beginning, so I'm not sure where they're going with that. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I liked about it. I liked the character Leon. I thought he was awesome. Roy had some fantastic dialogue, like stuff I did not know came from this movie, but I hear elsewhere all the time. The tears in the rain thing, tack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. How can attack ships be on fire in space? That doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of good dialogue to that movie that 49 didn't really have. Like, maybe over the years it'll start getting something, but there wasn't anything that really jumped out at me. Mostly because the movie was so fucking boring and forever taking. I've never fallen asleep in a movie theater, but I came so close today. Like, never before have I ever come that close. I was tempted to just go home and take a nap, but I knew as soon as I got back I'd have energy again because it was just the movie that was draining me. He found the date, 6/10/21, and Then his wife, Joy, played by Ana de Armas, who was really good, she found this like wooden thing and she said, "Oh, here's the date right there. Isn't that a coincidence?" He's like, "Oh no, that's not happening." And then forever happens, and then he's like, "Oh no, I am the child of that." And then another two forevers happen, and then they find out that he wasn't even the thing. And like, if they'd have sped all that up, I'd been more interested. And honestly, in a darker universe, I would have left before I even found out that he wasn't the kid. So it's like you're running a really dangerous game making a movie that fucking long. Yeah, it was pretty, but it was convoluted as hell, and definitely inferior to the original. I remember last year Denis Villeneuve said that he knew that the original was a classic and a masterpiece, and he was going to do his best on side of that. But it's like, cut 45 minutes out of your movie, maybe? Like, that'll get you pretty close. I mean, give me some scissors, I can get a half hour out of it, no problem. These movies must be like the best movies in the world for people who are like lighting technicians, because that's all it is. It's like people standing in darkness, people standing in front of a light source, people just completely illuminated, parts of a person illuminated. Oh god, that lady doesn't have an eye, but you couldn't tell immediately. Like, it's tricky shit that, I don't know, it's just kind of frosting, and the cake of the movie was just like too big, so the frosting was spread real thin. I think. I think that might be on something there, or it's dumb. At which point, I'm fine with that. That's totally expected. In the first Blade Runner, there was a perfect example of how the pacing is so fucking slow. Roy Rutger Hauer is like injured a little bit, I think, and he broke Deckard's fingers. And he's like, "I'm gonna give you a few seconds before I come," and he counts to like two. Deckard takes off running, and then he just sits down, kisses a dead lady, Daryl Hannah, Pris, and like it just takes like 4 fucking minutes to go back after him, just dragging the whole thing out. And it's like, I got some kind of problem with my attention span. You got to go a lot faster than that, or at least double time. And the thing that confuses me about this is I don't really know who the villain is. Like, you could say Roy was the villain of the first one, but he just wanted to live. Like, that's self-preservation. That's what most people want to do, except me. And in the second one, I couldn't tell. There was like 4 different people. Jared Leto didn't really seem to be that much of the villain because he was trying to give the ability of reproduction to his robots. I don't know. Also, Jared Leto is clearly doing the exact same thing Michael Pitt was doing, just way more subdued because he wasn't a robot. But that same, like, creepy... There's so much Ghost in the Shell in this, it wasn't even funny. I want to apologize to Ghost in the Shell for Blade Runner doing it better, but over a much longer period of time, which would arguably mean that it averages out to worse, I think. I don't know if I've made any sense whatsoever in this. If not, good, but I'm done. I got nothing else. Nothing of substance.